Hey everybody, welcome to Rants by Michaela. So yesterday I had talked about what some of the advantages are for not only the children but the parents of a family if parents allow their children to stay at home past the age of 18. And a lot of those benefits were majorly either academic or professional. If your children want to finish their education while staying at home, then that's great. If they want to start a business so that by the time they enter the real world without their parents' help, they enter the world as business owners rather than employees for somebody else, that's also great. Because of course, we know that sometimes when you own a business, you're working 80 to 100 hours a week, whereas when you're an employee, sometimes you only work 40. So it's not always great or the most convenient thing to be a business owner, but at least you understand what hard work is. But now let me tell you what some of the disadvantages are when it comes to your children if you allow them to stay at home past the age of 18, especially if they're not focusing on any sort of academic or professional career. One of the things that I mentioned yesterday is that my mom taught me how to be very multicultural. And one of the things that I learned about Latin American culture is that even though the culture itself is not very strict when it comes to education or maintaining a professional career, there's really just this kind of complacency with just having a job and being able to get your bills paid. Latin American parents will allow their children to stay at home until they get married. Well, women can't wait to get into a relationship, get married, and have a home with their husband. That's one of the things that we're taught from a young age. You know, what kind of man are you interested in? What kind of dress would you want for your wedding day? Have you planned your wedding already? We're constantly looking at the media tell us about what it's like to be the princess who's saved by the knight or by the prince, and what it means to live happily ever after. Now, one of the things that I also know about being a young woman wanting to hurry up and move out of the house as soon as she turned 18 or as soon as she got into a relationship and being in a rush to get into that relationship is mothers have a tendency to see their teenage daughters as competition for male attention. So life is not always grand at home for a teenage girl. They're constantly at odds with the mother. The mother is constantly looking at this young girl in her prime, in her youth. She's filling out. She's getting all of this male attention, even inappropriate male attention from men the mother's own age. And moms have a tendency to be jealous. Even if they're married, they don't want to know that the daughter is now prettier than the mother because of her youthfulness. So women can't wait to hurry up and get that boyfriend and be chosen and move out of the house and not have to deal with her mother again. But a lot of the boys, especially men in my generation, they have Peter Pan syndrome. They don't ever want to grow up and actually have to have real responsibility. So what they ended up doing was they decided as long as they never entered into a committed relationship, as long as they never became loyal to one person and actually committed to her and married her, then they can stay at home with mom and dad for as long as they wanted to. And now they wonder why women of my generation are actually like voluntarily single, because we don't want to enter into a relationship with somebody who has no intentions of being committed, because he would actually have to become a real man once he commits. We want somebody who's going to be a protector and a provider. How are you going to provide for us when you're not even willing to provide for yourself by moving out of your parents' house? So now that's actually kind of affected the dating game in the 21st century as well. So lack of ability to commit, lack of ability to be loyal, lack of desire to actually want to take on adult responsibilities, meaning laziness, ends up being a disadvantage on the part of the children. And then in this case too, also on the part of the parent, because now they've got this liability on their hands. Now they've got this kid who just never wants to leave. So the parents are stuck treating their grown child like a toddler for the rest of their lives, because the kid doesn't want to leave and the parent are not willing to kick the child out of the house. So lack of commitment is one. The second one is privileged mentality or entitled mentality. I let my cousin come stay with me at one point in time, and I think she really only stayed for about a month, maybe 2. She came in my house and she used to say things like, Michaela, can you take me down the street? I want to go over to a friend's house. Now, mind you, she had an Econo card that you could fill up the tank with only $35. I had a gas-guzzling 2001 Ford Explorer Sport that had white smoke coming out of the exhaust. That thing was definitely not going to pass the next inspection once registration was due. Okay? It was a gas guzzler. And she flat out says, can you take me down the street so I can go to my friend's house? And I said, well, what's wrong with your car? And she says, well, I don't want to spend my gas, so I want to spend your gas. I don't feel like I should have to spend my gas for that. That was one instance. The second instance is when she ends up saying, hey, Michaela, when are you going to refill the laundry card? We used to have cards that you had to put money on in order to go use the laundromat in my complex. And I said, I don't know. I don't have any money right now. Why? She's like, well, when are you going to fill it up? Because I need to wash my clothes. Now, mind you, this cousin is only 1 year younger than I am. Now, me coming from the environment that I'm from, you must not have wanted to wash your clothes if you didn't put laundry money on your own card so that you could have washed them. And you must not have really wanted to go to that place you were asking to go if you didn't take yourself. So you are fresh out of luck with me if you think I'm going to take on what are your adult responsibilities. So she learned really quickly that she could not treat me the way that she treated her parents and her grandparents by having this feeling of entitlement that it was everybody else's job to take care of her but her own grown self. But the problem is, the reason why she felt so entitled was because the parents and the grandparents were doing way too much for her, to the point where she didn't even think it should be an expectation to do anything for herself. That's one of the disadvantages of letting your children stay at home for too long, is feeling of entitlement. The third disadvantage is just plain old laziness. I have seen people do absolutely nothing with their lives in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, and in their 50s. To be quite honest with you, a lot of these people wouldn't even have their own place right now if it wasn't for the fact that their parents had passed away, because they were never going to go ahead and get their lives together. And the sad part about that is that now you've got a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old person who still has the mentality of an 18-year-old because they were never forced to get out there and live life on their own for a little while to understand what real responsibilities are. I'm dealing with that right now as a 33-year-old woman, because there's a lot of men in their 40s whose parents are passing on, and now they have to deal with the responsibility of getting their own place. Now they want to commit because they want to be with a woman that they can move in with and either share part of the rent or have her pay everything because he's not used to it. But if you're barely getting out there on your own at the age of 40, and I was already out there on my own at the age of 18, that means you will forever be, what is it, 36, 18 times 2 is 36 plus 4, that's 22. Your mentality will forever be 22 years behind mine, because I've been doing this since 18 and you're barely getting your life together. I will never forget when somebody, I think they were at the age of 50, they had asked me if I could explain to them the difference between a grant and a loan. That would have made sense if this person was a foreigner. What is a grant and what is a loan? How does the American financial system work that is completely different from the country that I'm from? That would have made more sense. This person was an American who just never had to know. Knowing the difference between a grant and a loan is something that all 18-year-olds know about, because one of the first things you do when you graduate high school is you go to community college. And community college tells you the difference between getting that federal Pell Grant and student loans to pay for your classes. And this was a person in their 50s asking for that information, because since their mother never kicked them out of the house, they never had any intentions of growing up and being an adult, having to go out there and get their education, get a good job so they can afford a home for themselves. That lack of motivation to excel in life came from being in an environment where no one pushed them to actually become a real adult. So just being flat out lazy, getting to the point where you don't know at the age of 40 or 50 what the average 18-year-old knows, or you don't want to learn how to commit and be loyal to another individual, until you're in your 40s and 50s, because now you have to, because you need help, because your parents are not there for you anymore. That's one of the disadvantages that comes with letting your kids stay at home too long. Whilst you think that you are helping them, you are actually enabling them to lack understanding of commitment, to lack understanding of hard work as opposed to feelings of entitlement, to lack understanding of what it means to go out there and have the motivation to be a real adult. Now, in my next video, what I'm going to go ahead and cover is what some of the benefits and the advantages are of actually kicking your kids out as soon as they turn 18. But this is just food for thought. Don't be an enabler. Feel free to kick your kids out if they're not doing anything with their lives. Anyway, that's my rant. You have a good one.